Sure. Here's a 1,600-word article written in a natural, flowing style for a YouTube video about the 1991 Pontiac Sunbird for 2025. This can be used as a script or a detailed voiceover for your video. The 1991 Pontiac Sunbird. It's not the car that pops up in conversations about American classics, and it's not going to win any modern design awards, but for a certain group of people, it holds a unique place in automotive memory. It was a car that hit the streets during a time of change. The early 90s were packed with transformation, economically, culturally, and technologically, and the Sunbird was very much a product of that era. When you take a look at the 1991 Pontiac Sunbird, you're staring at a car that represents both the aspirations and limitations of General Motors during that time. It was designed to be affordable, practical, and just sporty enough to appeal to a younger demographic. This wasn't meant to compete with European sports cars or luxury sedans. It was about giving everyday drivers something dependable with a little bit of style, and maybe even a little bit of fun. The 1991 model was part of the second generation of the Sunbird, which ran from 1982 to 1994. By this point, Pontiac had firmly planted the Sunbird as its compact front-wheel drive offering, built on the GMJ body platform. This platform also underpinned the Chevrolet Cavalier, Oldsmobile Forenza, Buick Skyhawk, and a few other GM cousins, but Pontiac always tried to inject a bit more excitement into the formula. And in 1991, while not revolutionary, the Sunbird had enough character to make it stand out in its own way. Let's talk about design. The 1991 Sunbird had a clean, angular look that was characteristic of the late 80s and early 90s. It wasn't flashy, but it wasn't completely boring either. The front fascia had that classic Pontiac dual-port grille and pop-up headlights if you opted for the GT Coupe. The standard models, especially the base ones, were more subdued but still carried that squared-off Pontiac vibe. It came in a few different body styles, a two-door coupe, a four-door sedan, and even a convertible. That's right, Pontiac gave budget-conscious buyers a chance to drop the top and cruise in open-air style. Under the hood, you had a few different engine options depending on the trim level. One of the more notable choices was the 1.8L or 2.0L four-cylinder engines, both overhead cam designs. The 1.8L turbocharged engine, for example, made around 165 horsepower, which, for a small, lightweight car in 1991, was pretty respectable. It gave the Sunbird GT some pep and personality, allowing it to scoot around town with a decent amount of enthusiasm. It wasn't exactly a street racer, but for its time and price point, it was peppy enough to put a smile on your face. The base models, of course, didn't come with all that firepower. The standard 2.0L naturally aspirated engine put out around 110 horsepower. It was reliable, easy to work on, and relatively fuel efficient for its day. Gas mileage was in the mid-20s to low 30s in miles per gallon, which made it a reasonable choice for commuters. And because it was a compact car, maintenance costs were low, and parts were cheap, especially since it shared so much with other GMJ body cars. Inside, the 1991 Sunbird was about what you'd expect. It had basic cloth seats, a simple dashboard layout, and controls that were refreshingly straightforward. No touchscreens. No complicated infotainment systems. Just knobs and buttons you could actually use without taking your eyes off the road. Depending on the trim, you could get a digital clock, an AM/FM radio, cassette player, air conditioning, and power windows. The GT models, of course, came with a sportier interior setup, including bucket seats, some extra gauges, and even a leather-wrapped steering wheel if you were lucky. Driving the Sunbird was, well, it was an experience rooted in realism. It wasn't going to carve up corners like a Miata or grip like a Quattro, but it handled decently for what it was. The suspension was soft, comfortable for daily driving, and absorbed bumps well. The steering was light, the brakes were adequate, and the car felt manageable. It was exactly what it was supposed to be, a budget-friendly daily driver with a hint of attitude, especially in turbocharged form. One of the things that made the 1991 Pontiac Sunbird special to so many people is that it was often a first car. It was affordable on the used market, easy to find, and simple to maintain. It didn't intimidate young or new drivers. You didn't feel guilty pushing it a little bit, and if it got scratched or dinged up, it wasn't the end of the world. For many, it represented freedom, a car that got them to school, to work, to parties, to nowhere in particular. It was your car, your key, your life, and that counted for something. Over the years, the Sunbird hasn't gotten much love from collectors or restorers. You won't find pristine examples going for six figures at auctions. But that's part of its charm. The Sunbird was a car for the people. And while most of them have long since rusted away or been scrapped, those few survivors on the road today still tell a story of youth, of practicality, of that unmistakable GM hum under the hood. By 1994, Pontiac retired the Sunbird nameplate and replaced it with the Sunfire, which tried to carry the torch with a more rounded, modern design. But many enthusiasts will tell you the Sunbird had a bit more character. Maybe it's nostalgia talking, or maybe it's the simple charm of boxy lines and pop-up headlights. Either way, the Sunbird left its mark. In 2025, looking back at a car like the 1991 Pontiac Sunbird is like flipping through an old photo album. It captures a time and place that doesn't exist anymore. The car market today is full of technology, complexity, and luxury, even in the budget segments. But the Sunbird, it was from a time when cars were just cars. You turned the key, heard the engine crank, and off you went. No touch sensors, no lane assist, just you and the road. There's also something to be said for how well these cars aged in spirit, if not always in structure. The simplicity of the Sunbird means that for anyone wanting to learn about cars, how engines work, how to fix things, how to tinker, the Sunbird is actually a great starting point. There's no high-voltage hybrid system to worry about. No insane diagnostic tools needed. Just good old-fashioned nuts and bolts. You could fix one in your driveway with a basic set of tools and some patience. You won't see a lot of Sunbirds at car meets these days, but every now and then, one pops up in pristine condition, and it turns heads, not because it's flashy, but because it's rare. And people respect that. It's the kind of car that sparks conversations. Hey, I used to have one of those, or, my buddy drove one in high school, or, man, I haven't seen one of those in years. And that's what makes it memorable. The 1991 Pontiac Sunbird wasn't groundbreaking. It wasn't exotic, but it was there for a lot of people at just the right time in their lives. It was dependable, affordable, and had just enough personality to make the drive interesting. In a world now overflowing with electric vehicles, digital dashboards, and self-driving features, looking back at the humble Sunbird reminds us how far we've come, and maybe even makes us appreciate the simplicity we left behind. So if you ever see one on the road, maybe tucked away in someone's garage or pulling up at a gas station, take a moment to appreciate it. That car has stories. It's lived. It's survived. And it's still cruising, over 3 decades later. In its own way, the 1991 Pontiac Sunbird is a classic, not because it's rare, or expensive, or fast, but because it mattered. And sometimes, that's more than enough. Let me know if you'd like this adapted into a video script format with suggested visuals or scene cues.